AI tools like ChatGPT, GitHub Copilot have revolutionized the way that we code nowadays. AI can essentially write your code in seconds, but I'll tell you what it can't do. It can't teach you how to think like a software engineer. So in this video, I'm going to go over some of the pitfalls that could be happening when you're learning to code and using AI. And then I'll also give you some tips on how to use AI effectively to really supercharge your coding journey. Let's go. All right, so if you're new, my name's Zazo. I've been coding for over 10 years and I've held various positions in the tech industry. Been in the tech industry for about 8 years. I've done things from software engineering all the way to data analytics and a little bit of machine learning, data science. So in this new age of AI, it can be very easy to slip into these pitfalls of AI, right? Beginners really tend to think of AI as the magic bullet to getting straight into software engineering and really learning to code. However, relying on AI too much can actually have the opposite effects, and it can stop you from building your core problem solving skills that you actually need as a software engineer. Writing code is a part of being a software engineer. It's not what software engineering is. Software engineers solve problems with the tool of using code. If you're using AI to generate all of your code, especially earlier on, then you're really skipping the solving problem part and you're just a code generator and you're not actually a software engineer. So what I would kind of think of it as is, imagine you're trying to learn how to drive and you get a car from your parents or from whoever and it's set on autopilot. You get in your car, tell it where you need to go, and it takes you there. However, at some point, you have to actually learn to drive that car manually. So, boom, no more autopilot. You really think you're going to be able to drive that car, assuming you had no experience driving in the first place? Probably not, and that would be really dangerous. The same thing with using AI to essentially handhold you and generate code for you without you actually having to think of solutions. So now I'm going to go over a couple different things that can actually hurt beginners when using AI. So it's not necessarily like as a beginner, you really want to do these things. Obviously you wouldn't want to hurt your own journey if you knew what you were doing, but it's kind of that thing of you don't know what you don't know. Yes, AI is great. And yes, it can be very easy and it can seem like magic, but you really skip learning the fundamentals of code, why something works, how it works, right? You can always generate things through AI, like a for loop and if statement, but you're not really understanding how they work in the underlying logic of those concepts, right? So for example, let's say you generate some type of algorithm, sorting algorithm for whatever reason. You have the algorithm and the algorithm may work. However, you don't know why it works or how it works. So let's say your manager comes to you and says, hey, I need you to change this algorithm. Sure, you can put it in ChatGPT, but you're never understanding how it works. But what about when somebody asks, hey, how does this work? On the spot, you're not gonna know. So that's one case. There's a bunch of different reasons why AI is kind of detrimental to beginners when learning. You can definitely use it as a tool, which I'll get into later in this video, of how to actually use it for your benefit. So coding or software engineering is more about problem solving than it is the syntax, right? So if the AI always solves your problems for you and you don't actually learn the skill of breaking down big problems into smaller chunks, you're really going to struggle with a couple different things. Instead of being able to debug your code in a tricky error, or you might just copy and paste it and then move on. But what happens when you get to a coding interview or when you actually get to your job? Sure, you can use AI on your job. I use AI in my role as well. But the thing is that you can't use it in the job interview. You can't use it, probably can only use it certain ways on the job. And it's not really going to teach you how to do these fundamental things of problem solving, breaking things down into small steps, and also just understanding why things are happening and how they're happening, and be able to essentially come up with a solution before even writing the code. ChatGPT is mere just an assistant to more senior software engineers that can write code, but they are actually developing the solutions, and they're providing, ChatGPT, GitHub Copilot, the context for writing the code, but they're coming up with the solution. But when you're using AI to essentially write all your code and copying and pasting code when you're first learning and not understanding the fundamentals, you're essentially giving away your software engineering skills, because you're not having to actually learn and repeat those skills, those problem solving skills over. So an over reliance on AI can actually lead to poor quality of code, right? So AI doesn't always give you the best or cleanest code. And as a beginner, once again, you don't know what you don't know. So if AI provides code that, let's say, works, right? You as a beginner, if you haven't done the fundamentals, you don't understand the whys and the hows, you're not going to even be able to ask it to optimize it, because you're not going to know if it's bad code or not. Imagine it like this. You ask it to look for certain things, and it just gives you a bunch of if-else statements. If you're a beginner and you don't know how if-else works, or you don't even have some idea of how code optimization works or how to write cleaner code, then you're just going to have a bunch of if-elses in your code, right? And that can lead to performance issues. And when you're working with a large code base, you are going to kind of need optimization here and there. But if you're a beginner and you've done this for your whole coding journey, you don't know what's optimized and what's not optimized, because you've been using AI as a crutch. So now I'm going to get into some key things that you can use and do to actually supercharge your coding journey with AI. Let's go ahead and get into it. So I'm not saying not to use AI, I'm saying to use it strategically and use it to your advantage. Use it to learn, right? That's the first thing. You want to use it for learning, not just for doing. So instead of asking AI to write a whole program for you, you try to write the program and you have it clarify some key concepts. Even if you use this with tutorials or online tutorials, right? And you're following along, and let's say there's a block of code that you don't really understand, put the code in ChatGPT and ask it to explain it to you line by line, step by step, as if I'm a 5-year-old, and really solidify the concepts. Use it as that tutor, use it effectively to essentially be a senior engineer mentor and explain these different concepts to you. That's how I think of it. So that way you can get better in your problem solving, in your learning, and you're really solidifying these concepts. If there's a for loop or whatever it is and you don't understand for loops, ask ChatGPT, can you explain a for loop to me as if I'm a 5-year-old, or in a very simple manner, or super detailed, whatever you want to give it context to do. That way that you're learning these concepts, and it's a lot easier than before, where you just have to read, these very generic ways of explaining a for loop. You could get it tailored to you by saying, hey, ChatGPT, can you explain it to me as, a 5-year-old? Write your code first, then use AI for debugging, right? Have a problem, whether it be you're working on a project or it's just a simple problem, and you go ahead and try to write it first. You have an error or you have any errors, instead of just saying, I'm getting this error, can you write the code for me? Write the code, copy and paste. You never learned why you got the error, right? You don't understand what you did wrong. Therefore, you're not really learning. You're just copy and pasting code. What I would do is, hey, I'm getting this error. Can you explain to me in my code what is going wrong? And have it explain to you which line it is. If it's a syntax error, obviously, there's not too much to learn about that, unless, you miss a semicolon or you miss something, you miss a parentheses or something like that. However, if it is a bigger concept and it's a data type issue, let's say that your function expects a string and you input an integer, it should be able to explain, well, this is the reason why this isn't working, right? And then from there you learn, oh, okay, I know not to make that mistake in the future. And then you can move forward. So another thing is, if you're stuck on a solution or an area, right, there's nothing wrong with generating the proper answer through AI. However, just be very cautious that you're actually comparing your solution to their solution and really understanding why that is working as opposed to what you have is not working. Or if you're using it to improve your code, let's say, once again, you have a bunch of if-else statements and ChatGPT suggests that you make a function or multiple functions to kind of compare and contrast a little bit easier with your if-else statements. Then just make sure that you are comparing those two solutions and understanding why ChatGPT took this route as opposed to the route that you took. Another thing is I would start with smaller AI prompts. I wouldn't say something like, how would I make a to-do list? And it gives you all those steps, because part of it giving you all those steps are things that you will have to do as a software engineer when you're working with big complex systems, right? Website with different endpoints and a whole lot of, like a CRUD application, you're gonna need to know how to break these different parts down into small steps. And with you doing the big picture, how would I make an API or, CRUD, whatever, it's essentially gonna be doing the part that you would be doing as a software engineer and breaking down it into small chunks. And the way that it breaks it down isn't always the best to how, what you're working on could be done. It's just giving you a solution that will work, right? And it's not as optimized. It may not be as optimized as you would like. So use smaller things for whatever it is. If I was trying to buy or build an API, right? How would I do this specific thing, small specific thing in such and such framework with such and such language, and go from there and learn and have it take you step by step. But you should really be practicing and focusing on breaking these problems down into smaller chunks anyway. And you should be tackling the ones that you can, and the ones that you can't tackle by yourself, or you don't know how to tackle by yourself, use ChatGPT or GitHub Copilot as a tutor so you can learn instead of just generating the code for you. So AI is definitely an amazing tool, but as a beginner, you have to be careful. It is very easy to misuse. And remember, when you're learning to code, you're learning to solve problems. Software engineering is solving problems. It's not just writing code. The AI can write code, but it cannot always solve your specific problems, and it cannot teach you how to solve problems and how to break things down. It can give you the general of breaking things down, but it cannot teach you how to think that way. All right, this is going to be the end of the video. I want to thank you for tuning in. Like the video, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and leave me a comment about how you're going to be using AI in 2025 to supercharge your coding journey. Love, peace, and chicken grease. I am out.